In this video, I will demonstrate how to use the Type tool in Adobe Photoshop. With an image already open in Photoshop, locate the horizontal Type tool in your toolbar. If you click and hold on this icon, this list will pop up. We'll be looking at the horizontal Type tool and the vertical Type tool. Choosing one of these, come over to your picture, click and drag, and a bounding box will come up. When you let go, that bounding box will fill with lorem ipsum filler text, and you can see that a type layer has been added to your layers panel. Once you have selected this word, you can go in and replace it. I'm going to replace it with the word inclined, and I will use the word illusion for my vertical word. Now, if you want to change the placement, you can use the Move tool in your toolbar and then click on the word and move it in the picture plane. You can also double click on it to bring back up the bounding box. Now, if I want to make some changes, I want to make sure that I am in the Type tool with the type highlighted. Let's say, for example, I move to a different tool and then I come back and I want to make changes. I can't easily change it without making it a type. So I'm going to go back to my Type tool and now click into the word, double click so the word is highlighted, and now I can go in and customize my type with these choices in the control bar. Sometimes what new students end up doing is they want to make changes to something they've already typed up, so they go back to their Type tool to make the change, but instead they click in the wrong spot and they end up with extra text that they didn't actually want. So you can see in the Layers panel how many type layers have been added, and you can select the type layer that you no longer want and click the trash can in your Layers panel. So again, I will click in and highlight all of my text and then come up and make changes. In this drop-down, you have a list of different type faces that you can choose from. Now, if you see that it has a caret here, that means it has some additional options. But if there is no caret, then it doesn't have the following options. You can choose something different like Arno Pro. And then I come here to the fonts. I have a lot of different font stylings I can choose from: regular, italic, semi-bold, and bold. So this typeface family has a lot of font choices associated with it. In this dropdown, you can make changes to the overall size of your type, and you can also click right into this box and you can punch in a number. Now notice my bounding box is too small and it needs to be pulled out, so I'll come in and change that to something a bit more manageable. Next, in this dropdown, this has to do with anti-alias, and it also deals with the rendering with the different pixels around the edges of the font. This one you probably won't use much, and you might not see much of a difference. Next, we have some alignment tools, so you can align where the type is within the bounding box. And here you can click into the color picker and you can change the color of the type. Once I click off of it, you'll see that. You can also use this icon here, which brings up the warp text. And this dropdown has a lot of really fun options for warping your text. And then here you have this icon, which will bring up the character panel, which is really useful. And I'm actually going to attach another text layer and use this character panel to show you another way that you can add text to your design. So I'm just going to go ahead up here and click the check mark to accept this text. I'll come back over to the horizontal Type tool and change to the vertical Type tool. And this time, I'm not going to draw out a bounding box. In this case, I'm just going to click. And again, I have the lorem ipsum filler text, and I'm using the word illusion, but I left off the I. I'm going to connect it to this I in the word inclined. So I want to show you the difference between clicking and dragging a box, which we did with the horizontal type, versus just clicking. So now when I go to my move tool and then I click, and again, you can move this around. So I'll move it underneath the eye. I'll use the arrow keys on my keyboard to line it up a little bit. Actually, I want to bring up the bounding box. So let me do Command or Control T. And now when I adjust the bounding box, the type is automatically adjusted as well. So that is something that you can't do when you drag out the bounding box and then type into it, but you can if you just click and begin typing. So let me step that backwards. And then now with our character panel open and looking at the vertical text, again, I got to the character panel by highlighting the text itself and then clicking on this icon to bring up this panel. We're going to take a look at some of the things in this panel. First, we've got our typeface family again, which is also matched with the typeface dropdown up here. We've got the font styling here, which is matched up here, and you can change the points or size of your text here. Next, I want to skip over and I want to show you the tracking feature, which deals with the space between each letter or character. Because inclined is very tight, little bit of space between, but illusion has a lot of space vertically. I'm going to click the drop down and let's try -100. And I think that looks a bit better. The letters are a bit closer to one another. If -100 is not enough, I can actually click inside and choose -200 and just type it in and click enter or return on my keyboard, and that spacing looks really nice. The next thing you can do specific to vertical text is this icon here will change the vertical scaling option. So as I adjust, let's say I bring it down to 75% and hit return or enter, it is also changing the size of my lettering based on the spacing vertically. Let's go back to the horizontal word, accept that, double click into this word, and now it's highlighted. Let's take a look at some of the other features in the character panel. This next drop-down deals with leading, but it's spelled like leading, pronounced leading, which is actually better demonstrated with a list of text. So let me come into here, hit return, paste in another list of text, and then highlight both. And now when I change the leading, you might see, there we go, it's changing the space between the two lines. So that's a little too close because now those two lines are on top of each other. There we go, now there's more space in between. I'll type in a number just to exaggerate, 200, and now you can see how much space is between these two lines. So this is a very good tool if you have a paragraph of text, for example. I'll step backwards. In this next example, we have kerning, which also deals with the space between characters or letters. And most of the time, there really isn't much of an option. You would probably, if you're going to adjust the space between letters, you would be using the tracking option instead, which is what we did with our vertical text. We also changed vertical scale, but you have horizontal scale as well. So let's bring this down to say 50%, and you can see how closely it has shortened the space between those letters. We'll bring it back up to 100% scale, and now our font size and spacing is back to normal. Here we've got our baseline shift, and again, this works better if you have paragraphs, but as you see when I put it in, it has just shifted the text up. I'll go ahead and change that back, and now it shifts the text down. Down here, you have some options having to deal with the typeface and fonts. And if you had a font that, say, didn't have bold listed under that font panel, you could try a faux bold. You also have a faux italic. And here you can choose to change all the text to capital letters, or you can change it to first letter is a large capital, the rest are just smaller capital letters. If you need it, you've got the superscript option. You also have an option for subscript to add numbers either to the top or the bottom of that text. You can underline your text, and you can also strike through the text. That's good for editing. I'll go ahead and remove these by clicking those icons again. Here you have the second row. You have the option for a ligature, which really works best with two letters linked together. I don't have any examples of letters where they would be linked to make a ligature in my example, but you can try it in yours. We also have contextual alternatives, and this will link letters together, sort of like an old style script writing, like a faux ligature. Again, I'm not sure any of my letters would work in this example. I might also need to choose a more stylized font to make that example work. Here we've got the discretionary ligatures. So again, here's the S and the T connected. We've got the swash, which will bend and curve depending on your typeface. You also have the option to do stylistic alternatives. Again, we'll extend parts of your text depending on if you have a serif typeface chosen that has these little tops and tails to them. This is a titling alternative, which is very good at, say, the start of a letter or paragraph. It will help that letter stand out. You also have ordinals like first, second, third, so you can add the smaller letters after the number, and you have fractions here. This drop-down will set the language for you, and again, we have the anti-alias choices, which are the same as this drop-down up above. Another panel that we haven't looked at is the paragraph panel, and this is similar to the choices over here in your control panel, but you also have some other options to justify the text, and you can indent your margins, or you can also add space before or after your margins, and you can decide whether you want it to automatically hyphenate or not. And now you can use the features of the type tool to change up your type however you would like. And then when you're ready, it's time to save your work. So go to File, Save As, and I save this in my Creative Clouds file in a folder for this class. I rename it my first name, last initial underscore, unit 02.1. And this was the type tool. I'll save it as a Photoshop document for my format. Click Save, and then go to File, Save As, change the format to a JPEG for my website. And that is how you use the type tool in Adobe Photoshop.